Okay. Everyone, this your soul brother Talib, coming straight at you. I just want to touch up on something, cause the night I've been scrolling over social media, checking out some things on social media. As far as even history go, with our current as well as former black political prisoners in this country, like the last surviving most known U.S. black political by the name prisoner by the name of Mumia Abu-Jamal, who was once a member of the original Black Panther Party and that's still incarcerated over the allegations of a killing of a white Philadelphia police back in 1981, which he was on death row for numerous years and decades, and is now no longer on death row, but is doing a life sentence without parole, which is, from my understanding, is still currently once again being appealed, and it's still an uphill battle even against that, just because the racists continue not to want to see this brother get his due justice, you know, from the suffering he's had to go through dealing with these false allegations against him, which apparently his death row sentence was commuted over, obviously to prove that he is innocent, because they wouldn't have took him off of death row if he wasn't. So, it was once again one of them smear campaigns like by COINTELPRO back in those days, like in the 70s and early 80s, to incarcerate, black activists and leaders and those of certain black organizations that they deemed as threats to this country's national security. But however, I was looking at a documentary on the Angola Three, the three brothers who was also members of the Black Panther Party in the 70s, that was incarcerated for decades in solitary confinement down in the Louisiana State Prison, of course, known as the notorious Angola State Prison in Louisiana. And they were all freed eventually, but they had to go through hardships. And one of the brothers, by the name of Herman Wallace, was freed to die 3 days later. And he was also even held up attemptedly by the state even after the federal courts declared that he be freed from prison. And they even had to take an extra step in forcing the state to finally release him from prison right 3 days before his death. So, it just go to show you how this country is, when it comes to its continued injustices of dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in America, and how their intentions have never been for us to be treated equally under the law as, so-called other white citizens of this country. And, who I usually refer to as pink skinned people, and basically, or pink skinned Caucasians, rather to say. But however, we as dark skinned descendants of slaves born in America apparently is never been treated as equals, nor are we ever going to be treated as equals up under a systemic racist system like this in America, long as it's continued? Unless this society crashes completely to its knees, and all this crap is done away with, or we do as we tried to urge our people to do from this platform of Operation Exodus Mississippi, to let's come together and take control of the state so that we can separate from our racist oppressor. But of course, that continues on falling on deaf ears. And see, all this, on that note, just what I said deals with why it's so important for the Mississippi campaign to, hopefully become a success, and to be kicked off to the point where we are actually free, while our future generations that will come behind us will actually know what it is to be a free people and not a people in captivity, as those of us who are their ancestors are still suffering even after over 400 years of being in captivity in this nation under a racist oppressor. But however, I like I said, I was looking at these different videos, even on the story of the late Geronimo Jajiga Pratt, who is the stepfather of the late rapper Tupac Shakur, who is a former member of the Black Panthers back in the 60s, and of course was framed and with the help of COINTELPRO was put in prison in California for 27 years out of his life for a crime that he eventually will be proven innocent of at a appeal trial, and but one thing I could say about brother the late Geronimo Jajiga Pratt was that he made a choice, unlike other black political prisoners who were freed from the clutches of the penal system in this country, like the Angola Three and those who were part of the John Africa movement that were freed after the bombing on their Philadelphia community back in 1985. He left the country, and he died, on foreign soil over in Tanzania, East Africa, which is currently one of the most thriving, biggest economy or economic nations on that continent, from my understanding. But he died over there, and I would say that although he was not an indigenous over there, but he died knowing that he was no longer in captivity over here in the U.S., on U.S. soil, and he died an honorable death, of course, of not being on U.S. soil, like some of our brothers and sisters, like in this similar case, who fled the United States, to get away from the prospect of criminal prosecution, because they were framed more than likely for crimes that they were falsely accused of, like I say, because of the doings of the COINTELPRO and those who were working with the COINTELPRO to have them destroyed. And I know about another brother who was also a former Black Panther member who ended up, I think he's somewhere over in West Africa, East Africa, in that same regional part of Africa. I forget exactly what country it is. I think it was, in Mozambique, one of them countries over there in that part of the continent. But he ended up over there after him and his, I believe, wife or fiance fled the country because to flee prosecution from being prosecuted over allegation of weapons charges, and they left the country. I think this was back in the late 1960s, and they have not been back to America since. And just like in the case of the late rapper Tupac Shakur's aunt, Asada Shakur, she ended up over in Cuba after she escaped from prison, where she was doing, I believe, a life sentence over allegations of being involved in the 1973 murder of a Caucasian New Jersey state trooper. And she ended up, like I say, escaping from prison and making it over to Cuba, where she's been at since. So like I say, I have to say that one way or another, these people found a way to get to freedom by leaving the United States. Now, mind you, I know there's no perfect country in this world, okay? But there are places, especially if we pay attention to Black American expats that have left the United States, and that always tell their stories on social media, which is not much paid attention to by the wide majority of social media, especially in Black social media land. They're telling their stories about the difference of their lives living overseas as opposed to them living under the stress of being Black in America. But, like I recently heard a Black expat overseas say, many Black Americans avoid the discussion about leaving America, basically, or just even the subject period about leaving America, because it's out of fear, and I agree with that. And I must say this, because like I said, and this doesn't have nothing to do with the platform as far as the Operation Exodus Mississippi campaign platform that I speak from and that I represent. But however, I say if we can't take control of a state, my thing personally for me, and this is my thing personally, if we can't do that, then I'd rather not even remain in this country. And I'm just going to speak for myself on that. Just to continue on suffering. You know what I'm saying? Under the systemic racist system. And knowing that I stand a chance of, ending up, getting my head blew off by racists because they see an N-word, or getting stopped and falsely accused of a crime by a racist cop because they see the N-word, you know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. I've been in the system because of stuff I actually have done to break the law, okay? But it's one thing to be living in America while black, facing the probability, or which could actually happen, of actually losing my freedom over something that I didn't do because of the fact that I am dark skinned, and that, discrimination because of my skin color would play a part in that factor, like it has happened to so many black and brown people in this country that are languishing in prisons, like Mumia Abu Jamal, like the Angola Three in Louisiana, for crimes they did not commit. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, this is a reality far as being dark skinned in America. And when you living up under these type of stress of, you know, constant worries every day, I mean, that takes a toll on a person in all ways that could be considered, whether it be mentally, physically, you know what I'm saying, and emotionally. This takes a toll, and I was listening to a brother who went by the name of William Hurricane Carter, who was once a world class middleweight boxer, who had did time in New Jersey for killing some Caucasians. And back in the 60s, racists decided to, trump up false allegations that he was the one that killed the Caucasians and sent him and a co-defendant to prison for decades out of their life until they won an appeal and got out eventually. But and this one brother, he left the country and went to Canada, And like I said, once again, I would have did the same thing. Because knowing, you done lost years out of your life being dark skinned in America due to racism, especially over something you didn't do criminally, but based on your race, you're being persecuted and all this other kind of stuff. Yes, rightfully, people should want to leave this country when, inequality is that insensitized in a systemic racist society like this, And I mean, when you want to talk about communism and other countries that may have more what you call domesticated laws that are designed to oppress people, well, I mean, I don't see too much difference with the United States in that case. I mean, and like I said, with the United States, as far as its media go, its controlled media machine go, tells us about other countries. Now it's becoming more harder to believe because of the example that the United States has set as a so-called free world society, as so it claims to be, and I have to say that, considering on when I look at things and see what type of country I live in, the more and the more I just observe, it's like, it couldn't be nowhere on the planet Earth no worse than here. I mean, yeah, I heard about situations like in places like Russia, Iraq, Somalia, Thailand, I mean, Venezuela. But I mean, like I said, you know, it ain't no worse than America when you look at the essential aspect of things when it come to corruption and all that kind of stuff. America just has a way of painting itself as like if it's some type of so-called free democracy. You know what I'm saying? But then, people quick to say, well, it's not like it is in other countries that if you say certain things, you get your head chopped off or whatever. Well, I mean, that's not true necessarily. Because even what I'm speaking right now in this video, I could actually get, you know what I'm saying, persecuted for in this country. Just because of the fact that I'm speaking the truth about what's going on in this country, and laws are steadily changing all the time to hinder a person's so-called freedom of speech in this country. Look at that guy who had formed Wikipedia, Julian Assange. They trying to deport him back to the United States right now, extradite him back to the United States to stand trial based on his exercising of freedom of speech. So just to sit up there and say that don't exist in this country is one of the biggest lies told. So once again, that just go to prove that what people say about other countries is essentially no different than what's happening right here in America before our eyes. But it's up to many of those to wake up to see for yourselves, because I'm not going to sit up and twist your arm and make you believe nothing I say. Like you say, you do your research and eventually you will find out for yourself how all this is true, But I mean, looking, like I say, going back to our, black liberation struggle in this country, I mean, up to this point in time of what we're going through and what we're dealing with, there is in fact no justice because of the racist corruption in this country. Just like with the death of Sister Breonna Taylor, which has not been resolved and which was a flat out murder. And I tell people, like I've said once or more than one occasion in videos, that don't be surprised if those who are standing trial or getting ready to stand trial for George Floyd's murder, don't be surprised if they get acquitted. And I'm talking about all three of the police that were involved. Don't be surprised if they get acquitted, because this is the type of society that we live in. Although the nation watched them literally murder George Floyd. But of course, look what happened. Just like the same thing with what's his name, that young brother in Chicago, Laquan McDonald, who a few years ago got murdered by getting fired on by the racist pig 16 times in cold-blooded murder. And all that one police got was 4 years. Come on. He might as well not have got no time at all behind that. Straight improbable cause murder of a young black male. And all he got was 4 years. Come on. That's and the rest of the other cops who wanted to withhold evidence of it, ain't none of them been tried. So it's all around just crazy, when you looking at these injustices, and you steady saying, well, America is still a great place to live, and we could, it's gonna change everything. Well, but while you steady waiting for change and not doing nothing to make change come, but you still want to live among your racist oppressors by being comfortable with this situation like it ain't nothing to it. That's why I always say that's why black people keep getting what they get according to the exact same results. And I'm getting more to the point, that I don't really care. I honestly am getting to the point that I don't care. The more and the more I see this going on, and I mean, because that tells me that, you know, as a group of people that have been oppressed in this country for over 400 years, and it's at the bottom totem pole of every other group of people in this country, even that's looked at less as human, and you still feel like something ain't wrong with that by living in a crazed society like this. Well, I mean, that tells me you don't care even if you exist as a group population of people among the rest of this population in this country, and that you don't even care about being exterminated. That's all that's telling me, and I mean, obviously, that could be seen even through the fact that we're killing each other. And like someone said to me the other recently, and I've heard this before, and it's true, there are a lot of us black people that are killing each other more so than the police is, which we're helping to even make their jobs more easier for them. As even like the Ku Klux Klan would once say, well, we don't have to kill the niggas. We could just sit back and watch. And, that is the truth, but the fact of the matter is that for those of us who claim to know the truth and to claim to be for the liberation of black people, but still want to be comfortable in the racist oppressive society under these type of conditions, you know, I just don't really know nothing else to say other than just, that you get what you deserve. Even it's more than the ones who don't know that they are actually, you know what I'm saying, living in a hostile environment. But and it's worse and much more different when you know what your plight is, when you can understand your plight more better than the common Negro on the street can, But you yet still want to live in this madness. So, even if you get, you know, gunned down by a racist cop or, unjustly stopped and frisked indiscriminately on the streets by some racists, or get called the N-word, or get mobbed by some racists on the streets because you the N-word, I mean, hey, that's just on you, and I'm making this clearly publicly known at this point because I know what type of corrupt racist society this is. I know what type of racist corrupt society this is. And the more I see it, the more, not that it infuriates me, because like someone say, how can you get mad at a people that's always knew nothing other than how to be a slave, So I can't get mad about that, but I can say this though, that whatever happens, we cannot blame or continue to blame others other than ourselves for our own condition when we have the resources. and even more than what our ancestors during slavery had, to pull ourselves all the way about this to eventually become a truly free people. Because as it stands, we're still not free. I don't care what they told you about the freeing of our slave ancestors in 1865. Well, when they let them go off told them that they could leave off the plantation, that they was free to go off the plantation, they left them with nothing. Meaning they had to conform to become, uh, you know, subjected to all other type of different discriminatory abuse. Then that's when this thing called the new Jim Crow came up, which is called mass incarceration, which was what kicked off old Jim Crow back in the late 1800s up into the early 1900s, when you saw blacks getting constantly lynched, especially throughout the South, and stuff like that. And those like Emmett Till, who was falsely getting accused and lied on over white women saying they raped them, and then ended up either lynched or sentenced to go to prison to be executed based on a lie and all this other kind of stuff. And then some of us was even snatched off the street, like that sister Michelle Alexander talked about in that book called Mass Incarceration, the new Jim Crow, where she talked about how blacks were actually put back in slavery, but through the so-called legal process of the so-called criminal justice system in this country. Since they could not outright enslave us, they had to use the so-called criminal justice system, according to what they call the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which says that they cannot enslave us unless we're convicted of a crime. And that's what happened. They would falsely accuse a bunch of black men, just even if it was for laundering, and snatch them up off the streets and then go work them in some field somewhere, or have them building some railroad tracks somewhere. And then, once they got done with them, and then they leased them to some other contractor, and it continued on, just like how it went in slavery, where they, exchange slaves, between different slave owners and all that kind of stuff. So the same cycle continued, and it still is today, which is through mass incarceration. You know what I'm saying? So, and this is why we keep getting incarcerated as much as and we can't even see that, but yet we still walking around thinking we free in this country. It's a reason why black people are saying now that Black Lives Matter. It's a reason for that. That's just not by coincidence, or just because somebody just decided on the thought of it merely. No, it's a reason why people are running around now screaming Black Lives Matter. And even now in the beginning of 2021. So I mean, the reality of the whole situation is that, we are in a corrupt society, and we need to understand and realize that we cannot remain sleep to this fact. Just like last year, when this coronavirus thing kicked in, and changed the whole daily, normal life pattern of this world, you know, and up under these circumstances, we see what's been going on in this country as well as throughout the rest of the world, but mostly so in this country, especially with its racism and corruption. See, and we warned you from our platform of Reality Temple on Earth that anything can happen in this country to really infuriate these racists here enough to really want to have their way with us. And us, I mean, as dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in America, especially, and that just proved right there that things could get crazy under any right given circumstances in this country. And you know what? Like, it's like this here. I can't warn you enough, but something even worse than this COVID-19 thing could take place. And you think these racists is really having their way with us now? Well, then you got another thing coming. Because then they could have us in a position, which they really got us in a position now. But they could actually enforce that position by putting our butts back in slavery. But those of you, especially who think you are so intelligent that you know better and you have the answers, well then you don't have no defense against a military to begin with, okay? I'm talking about the most powerful considered military in the world. You don't have no defense against that. Okay, they have resources along with that could actually force us back onto them cotton fields as well as them sugarcane fields. Yes, today modern black Americans can be put back into that type of slavery by force, especially with the capabilities that our Caucasian oppressors here have, more so than what they did when they had our ancestors under that type of form of slavery. Okay, so, I mean, don't get that twisted. We could actually end up back in slavery in this country, for real. And I've always reminded those of us that, in these different videos, but I mean, like I say, it's up to you to take this, what I'm saying, and, investigate it for yourself, don't take my word just alone. Like someone say, go check it out for yourself, That's all you got to do, The truth is out there. I mean, and what's more important, like it says, for those of you in religion, like it says in the Bible, may so the truth set you free. So, that's the only way you gonna get this, is to know and understand the truth for what it is and to accept it and act on the truth according to what it is, to deal with whatever circumstantial situation it is that's needed to be dealt with to, to make life more simple. You know what I'm saying? And that's what that's all about. And if we can't understand that enough as a people, far as us as 44 plus million dark-skinned descendants of slaves born here in America, then we deserve to be in bondage forever until we are totally, exterminated. So, I mean, that's just the bottom line to that, and I mean, like I said, I can't say no more than just to the fact that, we need to wake up and understand that we're living in a serious reality right now that, and like I said, I'm not going to force my opinion personally on other black Americans when it come to talk about leaving America, but I would suggest this here, that you understand that there are black expats out there, you know, whose voices are out there in social media being spoken and heard. And they sending us warnings from their own personal experiences, but they're sending us warnings, letting us know that America is not the only center of the universe, okay? And you know that we as black Americans need to snap up out the fear of envisioning on leaving the country. You know, we need to just come out that fear. We've been up under that fear for too long. We need to snap up out of that and get out there and see the rest of the world. You know, and that's the bottom line to that. You know, especially while we're still going through all the hell we're going through here in America. And then, you know, one last thing I do want to comment on too is that for those who say that, well, you know, every black person or every black American is not getting murdered by police or discriminated against through housing or jobs, and or is being stopped and frisked unjustly. Well, my message is this here, is to realize and recognize this, is that because it ain't happened to you individually, don't mean it won't happen. Especially if you're dark skinned living in America. Just because it did not happen to you, don't mean that it won't happen to you. Okay? And so, you know, like I said, just wake up and understand and recognize that fact. Once again, I'm going to repeat myself. Just because you being black in America and you say you have not been stopped by police, or anyone you know has been stopped by police and discriminated against because of the color of your skin, certainly do not mean that it would not happen. Okay? Just because you walking down the street or jogging down the street being dark skinned and a police, racist cop, or any type of racist run up on you and blow your head off because they see the N-word, or harass you or arrest you for no reason for something you didn't do because you the N-word, don't mean that it won't happen to you. Because there's a probability, long as you're dark skinned living in this country, it can happen to you at any given time. This is the type of country we live in. Okay? And black people need to clearly wake up and understand and see that. Okay? I don't care about your status, rich or poor. And of course, they've showed you your money don't mean diddly nothing. Look how they treating people like Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, Kobe Bryant, Prince. You know what I'm saying? And I could keep naming. The list could go on, you know. I don't care nothing about even Oprah Winfrey. I don't care nothing about your money. You know, look at R. Kelly. You know what I'm saying? Look at O.J. Simpson. I mean, you know, they don't care nothing about your money. You will steal the N-word. You know, they could care less about that. You know, as long as you in America, that's what you are. Under this systemic racist system and the corruption that goes along with this systemic racism in this country. And, you know, that's what I wanted to really, you know, get off my chest and talk about tonight, because that need to be heard, you know, especially those of you that go back to the civil rights struggle of the 50s and 60s. For those of some of you from that era that are still living, you know, you even need to be reminded about that, you know. And those of my generation that are in their 40s and 50s and over need to be reminded that hey, you still the N-word in America. As far as these races concerned, and as long as we ain't got no protection around us here in this country, we in no respect, especially because of the fact that we don't have no unity among ourselves, is why we still gonna be just that, in this country as dark skinned people. So I mean, we need to understand and recognize and come to a point that hey, look, either I want to be free or just be a slave and die as a slave. And it's just that simple. It's no more, no less. I mean, and so with that said, I mean, because I'm about getting tongue tied, but I just want to point out them things, and I mean let you know that things is getting so tight that we must unite, like I said, especially to take control of the state where we can have somewhere to quarantine and protect ourselves from the racists or just simply die a slave. You know, I mean, and with that said, I'm out 5,000.